Aloha, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm super excited. This is my longtime friend. We've met years ago when we were in New Jersey, Jerry Sanchez. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Hi, Pili. Well, thank you. I'm so really extremely happy to be on.
I am extremely happy to have you on. So, Jerry is a multifamily investor and co-sponsor targeting BC class 1970 plus build assets in Greenfield, South Carolina MSA. He will also invest in other Southeast and NJNYPA markets as opportunities arise. Jerry is a limited partner and general partner in properties in New Jersey and South Carolina. The focus is on $1 to $5 million, 10 to 50 unit assets with room for increasing operational efficiencies. He will partner with experienced co-sponsors and partners to find compelling investment opportunities for active and passive investors. He will also acquire smaller size properties as opportunities arise and expected returns fit a targeted profile. These properties will be acquired with partners who are seeking similar opportunities. In addition, his mission is to provide safe, affordable, and clean housing for tenants. Welcome again to the show, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always interesting when you actually listen to the bio read out. Thank you, and I appreciate it. Yeah, you know what I do, I'll give a quick, just kind of a history of myself in the multifamily and how I got
Perfect.
I about 2.5 years, 3 years, really, middle of 2019, live up, like we talked about how we know each other from your days in New Jersey. I'm still located here in New Jersey. And of course, I love it here. And, I have a wife, I have 2 kids now, they're teenagers. 13 and 16, both soon to be 17, which is crazy. And, for those that are, I work at a hedge fund in New York. So, that stage in life where you're kind of sitting down and looking at both the future and whether it's with the kids, college is coming up, looking at the portfolio, thinking ahead, like, wow, retirement, not too far away. And all these kind of things are coming in your head. And I said it's time to start to look at additional income streams, also prepare for the time where you want to move out or get out of your W-2, and what that would take. So start to look at real estate. As I mentioned, it's pretty time demanding where I work, and I knew fix and flips were not going to be something that I can do and time wise. So started to research and study, and multifamily made a lot of sense. And a lot of that's because where I work, I don't want to say it's a family office, but it's family sourced funds. It's a pretty large fund. And they basically bifurcated between two, one that's your typical equity long short where they trade their Netflix, and the other one, though, they do private equity and real estate. And it was interesting because it started to ring a bell when I started reading about multifamily syndications and basically pulling assets together to go after a larger asset, and I said, hey, I could do this. That's what they do, except, they're actually taking down bigger numbers, but, instead of 60 million, maybe we can do 600,000 and eventually 6 million. So that was how I started to look into multifamily. I eventually found a local operator, and interestingly enough, he was presenting at your and Jason's Meetup in New Jersey, which was January of 2020. So exactly 2 years ago, Anthony Scandiara, Red Knight Properties. And that was my first opportunity to invest as a limited partner, and kind of got the bug from there. Anthony's great, very transparent. And, of course, a few months later, COVID happened and we all took ourselves home. And it was interesting because I think that for me also helped to propel myself into the multifamily area.
I love your genesis, and it's crazy because you said that was January of 2020. And COVID happened shortly after, and then you jumped in with Anthony, you jumped in with us in Multifamily Live, Multifamily Foundation. And I remember watching you grow into multifamily as COVID was happening, and trying to figure out your place in multifamily. And now you are an amazing provider. You are on the limited partner and general partner side. So let's talk about that. You've talked about your genesis. Talk about how important it was for you to jump on the limited partner side first.
Absolutely. For that, again, it was very interesting because I, met Anthony at that January meeting. And that was funny. I couldn't make the February one because I actually wanted to introduce myself. Everybody came right after you guys at the end of the meeting. So I was like, okay, I'll catch them next time. I didn't make the February. And of course, there was never another meeting for a long time. But what was great about it was when this particular property, which is in Newton, New Jersey, I went out there. Anthony was gracious enough to, walk me and another potential investor through this property, limited partners, and we did the whole walkthrough. He had another property in the same town, and that was just eye-opening. And for more than one reason. One was this is a part of New Jersey that's not close to, say, New York, right? So you knew that these were not people commuting to New York. It was just your regular. It was a Sunday. People take care, and they were. You could tell by the cars and how they took care of like the little area in front of the apartment that it's just a working class and people want a nice place to live. And I started to get the idea. I understand what the business plan is. You come in here. You fix things in each unit as it turns, you raise rents and you build a business that way. So that opened my eyes, and it was a great opportunity. And obviously going through the whole process of investing, looking at the executive summary, understanding, the underwriting, not as someone that's looking to take on the deal, but just looking to invest, was a tremendous learning process.
Well, you get to learn it from the eyes of a passive investor, of those people that you want to bring into your investors as a sponsor. So take the step further. Tell us about how you got into your first deal, and let's go from there. Let's continue this genesis.
Yeah. So, what was very interesting, again, I go back to the opportunity, working at home, being at home. Here's a time I commute into the city, which takes, really about an hour and a half each way. That's 3 hours. And so, you have the time opportunity. Sometimes you can log off at 6 o'clock and you have time. It's not. So it was interesting. I just started to research, and I found some meetups, and some of them would be online. And, what was another awesome opportunity was, I think everybody remembers when COVID first started, and, you're Zooming, and, it was kind of funny at first because, you're having like a FaceTime, happy hour with your friends. And years ago, I'll date myself, when I got out of college, a group of us put together a stock club, and we would get it together every Sunday. Truth, it was kind of a reason to get together and hang out, but we also, put some stocks and pick them, and we were investing in AOLs. That's how long back it was, and it was the concept, though. Eventually, everybody had different reasons, and it unwound. But as I started talking about multifamily with a few of my close friends, and they said, why, maybe we get that concept back up of building together a club. And, just started having more like monthly, weekly, eventually it became, less and less, but it was more of a monthly meeting. And that idea was that get together, we'll talk and we'll learn. And that's what made me say, what, why don't I start going to other meetups online and learning from them? And along that process, I realized there's other markets that I want to get involved. And I started to look into out-of-state markets. And that was kind of the genesis of I'm going to now look as a limited partner in another part of the country. I also now need to meet sponsors and operators in that area. And that eventually, gave me the idea, in order to do so, you need to network and connect with these potential sponsors. And that was a whole nother process that started from there.
This is amazing. I love how you went from limited partner to jumping into our program to really honing in and building your tribe, and then taking down your first deal. So tell us about your first deal And let's continue the genesis. Let's continue going on. Let's dig in deeper to who Jerry is.
Yeah, again, going back to, for me, it was, so now I fast forward, I started to work. I think I was one of the few people that went back into the office. So I was back in the office already in June of 2020, but this was before everyone was vaccinated. So I wasn't taking the train. I wasn't feeling comfortable. We drive into the city. And of course, that meant I had a whole lot of podcast time. So, I would set up a list of what podcasts I want to listen to. And around that time is when I kind of started targeting what area. And for me, it was North Carolina, particularly Raleigh, Durham. These are just a great area, obviously, Research Triangle. And the more I started researching, it was like, well, obviously it's a great area, so everybody's there and it's super competitive. And I don't think this is going to work for someone brand new. So let's look for some outside markets. And eventually it came across Asheville, and then it was Greenville, South Carolina. And at first it kind of struck me. I was like, why is there a Whole Foods and a Top Golf and all this going on in a 70,000, people city? And I quickly realized, well, it's a county of 500,000. The upstate of South Carolina is 1.4 million, and you have BMW and there's Michelin, and there's a whole and large economy around that. They have this inland port that they build the cars and they feed them down to Charleston. A lot is going on there. So now it became, well, okay, I have to start connecting. I started listening to podcasts, and anyone who would talk about Greenville, I started reaching out to them. And I eventually connected with a sponsor, on Sanabella, who's based out in there. And he was investing in multifamily himself. And that was kind of just the genesis of starting that relationship. And eventually he had a deal that he was raising for, and I became the LP there. And probably be about 4 or 5 months later, he had his first Greenville deal, and I had the opportunity to get a co-GP on his team. And that was all through a connection that I heard a podcast one day. I reached out to him maybe about 6 or 7 months before that and started the relationship there.
See, and you've heard me say this before, and I know, oh, my listeners, you've heard me say this before. Relationships equal partnerships. If you don't make those relationships, you're not going to have those partnerships. Who are you to know that that podcast you listen to and you reaching out to Arn would create this amazing opportunity for you? So let's dig into that. Let's talk about networking and how important it is, well, really in any facet of business, but especially in multifamily.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many different facets, and there's more than one way of networking. Towards the end of 2020, right before 2021, I started thinking about starting my own meetup. And part of that was I knew that the virtual world was going to go away because, as things started to open up. And some of these meetups were prior, they were in person. So how about if I create what I'm looking for, which is basically, I sit here in New Jersey. There's a lot of New Jersey, New York investors that look out of state. So, and this was a way to connect with people who are operators there. So that's why I created my multifamily connection. But a lot of that was, I remember talking to Jason, and I was like, what should I do? And I'm gonna wait till I get a little more people. And then it's like, just do it. And I was like,
let's do it.
Yeah. And, I remember getting off the phone call. I was like, that was kind of like simple. And I was like, just do it. And literally I did it. I said, you know what I'm going to do? It's December. I'll went through the process of creating it, logging in, doing all that. And the first one was basically just a bunch of people talking, and then started January. And literally I just finished 13 months straight of doing that meetup. And I think what's important about that is you start to meet people and talk to them, and it becomes, you talk to somebody for once, and then it's 2 times, and there's 3 times, and it's, and that's how you build relationships. But there's many ways. I'll go back to when we first connected. It was about 5 or 6 months before I actually got on the phone and talked to Jason. Mm-hmm. And then part of the monthly calls, you also meet other people who are doing the same thing. And then the group that we have, like 4 or 5 of us, started to create our own side group. And I think that's the important part of networking, is you find also similar like-minded people like yourself.
Finding those like-minded individuals is very important. I want to wrap up this kind of genesis of how we met and how we've been able to grow together. So you came to our meetup. You've grown since then. You've grown into this amazing multifamily provider. You've co-GP'd on deals. You've LP'd on deals, and you are actively looking for deals. And you also run your own meetup, which happens to be called Multifamily Live. So when Jason and I moved from New Jersey to Tennessee, we kept on going. We kept on keeping up the New Jersey meetup, even though we were still in Tennessee. But once the world started to open up, we're like, okay, we're not in New Jersey anymore. But this is the important thing, folks. The thing is, we gave our meetup, our New Jersey meetup, and access to it to Jerry, to a bunch of our students at the time, because we knew, liked, and trusted them to take on what we had created, this amazing group that we had created out of a thought process, the same thought that Jerry just had, was just to get it started. I want to collect people around me. I want to teach what I know. I want to know other people that know more than me, and how better to do it than to start my own meetup and to create relationships that can take me into the future. So Jerry, thank you for that. Before I let you go, because you are also a part of Seven Figure Multifamily, how has Seven Figure Multifamily helped you to up-level your business?
Yeah, I think, as you grow in this, initially it takes time to understand. And at first, you don't know what you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be overwhelming. And you try to accumulate as much information as you can. I think what accelerates that is obviously having contact with mentors or more experience who can walk you through, who can teach you and make you feel comfortable and confident that any questions that you have. And, obviously the program creates more than just that because of the resources, the ability to know if you're going to underwrite a deal, you can take it to someone else looking at it. You have a question, you post it on the Facebook page, and that just helps your growth. And it's like they tell you in school, or parents tell their kids, ask the question because there's someone else that has it. And it's funny. I just did it recently. You asked a question about, setting up LLCs, and then every 4, 5, 6 other people jump on. So I think that's the important part of that network and an educational program.
Again, setting yourself up for success and surrounding yourself with people who also want to learn and grow and take those steps necessary to take them to the next level. Jerry, thank you again so much for coming on. Before I let you go, how can my listeners find you?
Yes, find me on LinkedIn as Jerry Sanchez, and jerrysanchez.invest with an S at gmail.com. And obviously, please join the Meetup, Multifamily Meetup Live. And as well, I have one called Carolina Multifamily Connection on meetup.com.
Fantastic. We're going to leave all that information down in the show notes. Please join the meetup. Jerry, if I'm not mistaken, you still do a virtual meetup too, right?
Yeah, so the virtuals, that's on I think it's the third Tuesday. And then, willingly, we're meeting, we quarterly, and the idea was to get back to every other month and then eventually monthly, but we'll see how that goes early on. But I see by the end of the year, we're going to be meeting more frequently.
Fantastic. So everyone, find Jerry, meet up with him, surround yourself by the best people, by people who want to know, who want to grow, and want to grow into what you want to do. Again, Jerry, thank you so much. And to my listeners, I am so grateful to you. If you have any interest in learning about large multifamily, please tap on that link below for Seven Figure Multifamily. And also, if you have a moment, rate, review, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. So much aloha, so much peace, so much love. Talk to you later.
I appreciate it very much.
Appreciate you, Jerry. Aloha.